Hello and welcome to newsok.com. I'm Jim Stafford, a business news reporter for the Oklahoman, and today we are honored to have as our guest Thomas Dorr, U.S. Agriculture Undersecretary, who's in town today for a speaking engagement at Langston University's Small Farmers Conference. Welcome, Secretary Dorr.
It's good to be here.
Well, you just spoke within the hour at the Langston Conference, and you covered a lot of territory that I want to ask you about. And one of them is the Farm Bill, which was passed and then vetoed and then overridden, and I'm not sure what happened then. But can you tell us what's happened on that front?
As I understand it, once a piece of legislation is prepared and considered ready after it's been voted on to go to the president, it goes through a process of what they call enrolling, which means essentially they scrub it to make sure it's as they defined it and that they have all the pertinent parts of it in the document that goes to the president. Well, it appears that after the House and after the Senate passed it, and as they were going through this enrolling process, that some clerk inadvertently left out the credit title, Title III, and it's not a very long title. It wasn't caught. It went to the president. The president vetoed it, not knowing that Title III, I'm sure the president doesn't sit up and read 1,700 pages of documents. And when they finally figured out what had happened, the president had vetoed it, sent it back to the Hill, and then all at once everyone realized that the real piece of legislation that had been sent up, that had been vetoed, was not really the real piece of legislation, and all at once they decided they had a constitutional issue on their hands. So, as I understand it, the leaders in Congress have decided that they are essentially going to suspend or amend the rules, allow themselves the opportunity to re-vote on the original piece of Farm Bill legislation with all the appropriate titles in it, and then resubmit it to the president, whom I'm sure will again veto it, and then it'll be sent back to Congress if that's how it plays out, for their decision on whether or not they wish to override or not.
Well, let me ask you about the president's opposition to the Farm Bill. I mean, the Congress has worked months, maybe longer, to get a piece of legislation, and now the president's going to veto it. Why is that?
Well, I think the president was pretty clear back in January of 2007 when he sent the administration's proposal up. He actually had proposed increasing conservation program investments of up to $9 billion. Congress only increased it by $4 billion. He proposed increasing nutrition or specialty crop program payments of about $5 billion. Congress increased it by $9.5 billion. There were a lot of gains made on areas, although not as great in some cases as he would have desired. But the area that he was really adamant that needed some quality reform was in the traditional commodity title. That title that so many of our farmers in Iowa and Oklahoma that deal with wheat or corn or soybeans are familiar with. It was simply that we've doubled net farm equity in the United States in the last 7 years. We've gone from $1 trillion to $2 trillion in equity. We have record net farm income in 2007. It looks like we're going to have another record in 2008. Record net farm exports. All of these things have grown exponentially. If we're truly concerned about maintaining a strong farm safety net, the recognition was that we couldn't continue to essentially lather Title I with more subsidies. What we had to do was restructure, refine it, make sure that there was a safety net that was appropriate there, but that we didn't continue to pour subsidies into farmers who had net farm adjusted gross incomes in a excess of $200,000.
Well, tell me how the production of ethanol and corn-based ethanol is impacting the production of cellulosic ethanol.
What was really important was to get a mass of ethanol production. And that's what we've done in the corn industry. I mean, we're now producing 9 billion gallons of ethanol out of corn. What this has done is provided the catalyst. It's provided a subsidy, if you may, that assures people like, frankly, the Noble Foundation down at Ardmore and a number of their very sophisticated partners that there is a market for ethanol. And it assures them that it is worth putting the resources into cellulosic production. Those of us in this business know that we clearly can't use all the corn, but all the corn in the United States won't really make a big long-term dent in liquid fuels. But we do have extraordinary amounts of biomass, whether it's wood or whether it's grass, being produced all over the country, all over the world, that if we can figure out how to unlock that hemicellulose and that cellulosic material, and perhaps even use the lignin in there to act as a cogen heat source, that we then have the ability to produce a lot of cellulosic energy.
A local farmer and the founder of the local food cooperative told me he believes that the U.S. farm policy that encourages massive production of grains has discouraged small farmers in third world countries, and they're losing their production, and that's contributed to this whole food shortage that we've been reading about. How do you respond to that sort of allegation?
Well, frankly, I think just the contrary. The fact that wheat at one point in the state of Oklahoma could have been sold for $12 or $13 a bushel, that corn is worth $6 a bushel, that soybeans are worth $12, $13, $14 a bushel, that's a price that's reflective worldwide. And what we're finding is that this extraordinary demand for food and this extraordinary demand for energy, if we have good, consistent, solid international global trading policies, give these small farmers, if their governments make it possible for them to embark and involve themselves, it gives them a great opportunity to ramp up production, become more self-sustaining. But the thing that's important to remember, we have historically, and I know I'm a farmer, and I know the antagonism that producers have had over the years relative to a number of these international trade issues. But we have to get our trading partners to appreciate and respect intellectual property rights. The Europeans need to understand that genetic modified organisms, biotechnology, quite frankly, would have facilitated growing more wheat, more rice, probably would have lessened some of the price pressures that they're experiencing. And on top of that, trade, two-way trade consistently is good for everyone. And it mitigates these price stresses that we have in places if the product can go freely from one market to another. That, in conjunction with the fact that you now have these higher prices, if governments will allow their private sectors to function, their farmers to work and to do the things that they do best, you and I both know that farmers who love farming are unstoppable. You give them the latest technology, the latest tools, they're out there because they love to work, they love the land, they love what they're doing, and they'll produce. But when you come out on the other side, guess what? The pie is always bigger. Human ingenuity always figures out how to do things smarter, more effectively, more cost efficiently, and I'm confident that we'll do that all over again.
Secretary Thomas Dorr, we thank you for coming into our studios here at the Oklahoman and being our guest today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim. It's a real pleasure.